For Sunday, January 10th, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda in this new year, the General Assembly is high on the hog and in town. A powerful opponent arises toward merit pay for teachers, and the city of Atlanta pays the school system some money, but it's still controversial. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you agree with us this fine Sunday. Tonight is the Wild Hog Supper that traditionally kicks off the session of the General Assembly. That begins tomorrow. Over the last two broadcasts, we've looked ahead at some of the issues, and we'll continue to today, but with a little clearer focus. For example, on the issue of merit pay for teachers, David Ralston, the Speaker of the House, met with teachers in his home district and came away thinking this won't work. And that's a powerful person to oppose merit pay.
Well, that's right, and that was some of the big news of the past week. And as we've been discussing for the last couple of weeks, the devil's in the details with regard to the governor's proposal. And of course, he has a series of other educational proposals we can talk about. But it has to do, Alexis, with something you've talked about over the years, and that's testing too, and how you grade someone and how you give them the merit pay.
And also, Richard Wood, the education superintendent, said this week that teachers are leaving in droves, and testing, as Alexis has mentioned, is a huge part of that.
He calls it a crisis.
Right. It was listed in a survey by the Accreditation Council as the #1 cause for teachers leaving the profession, and it said 44% of new teachers leave within 5 years, and it's all, not all, but primarily because of the pressures from the testing.
That's an astounding rate, 44% within 5 years.
Yes.
Now, I think teachers are going to do well in this session of the General Assembly. As the tales of the budget starts to leak out, teachers are going to get pay raises. They're already getting pay raises in their local districts, DeKalb, for instance, Gwinnett. But looks like the General Assembly is going to find the funds that the governor wants for K-12 in a new spending formula. We agree on that?
That's right, although I think the governor still wants the districts to have final say over the pay raises for teachers.
Yeah, that's so. That's correct.
Although some are making noises about making it designated for pay raises so that the teachers will get them, rather than leaving it up to the local system. But I don't think that's going to go through.
Now, Phil had to be very happy this week. Chris Matthews talked about Obama once and said that a tingle ran down his leg when he thought of the president. And Phil, I think, was tingling when he learned that the Homeland Security Department raided refugees, illegal refugees, in, illegal aliens in 3 states,
yes,
and rounded up 121 of them, including a bunch in Georgia.
Yes.
So what's taken them so long, Phil?
Well, and that's the good question, and a tear did come to my eye, and although that's far too low a number, but it is a good signal, so I'm going to praise the Obama administration for that.
And I also think it's just the latest in a series of efforts, because according to some of the statistics, that the Obama administration has deported more illegal immigrants.
Not true anymore. It went down. It went down over the last year,
yeah,
and so, and I think Donald Trump is driving this.
It was true that the deportation rate was very high, especially among people who had committed crimes and who are a threat to communities. They were being deported in very large numbers, and so you're exactly right, Alexis. It is part of a trend. It's just that, all of a sudden, conservatives are shedding a tear and are taking notice.
Well, I'm glad he's doing it, but I think, Dick, it's because of Donald Trump and some of the Republican candidates demanding that this be done.
Well, really?
Oh, come on.
I don't think that the president cares one bit.
Let's separate illegal aliens from refugees from war-torn countries. Because this week we had the first rift that I can really remember among top Republicans when Attorney General Sam Olens issued an opinion that the state must take refugees sent by the federal government, that it has no discretion. Presumably that means Georgia also must give them food stamps, welfare benefits, and all the rest of it, free stuff. And so there we are. The governor has had to back away from his promise not to take any refugees as a result of Sam Olens' opinion. Is there a rift here between those two?
Well, obviously, the governor's office was not happy at all. In fact, I'm very surprised because I've talked, as we all have, with lawyers on both sides of it, and even if you argue it's a close call, go to court, fight it out in court. Just the other day, Alabama went to court to stop refugee resettlement and public benefits. It was the second state to do so. Why not battle it out? There's these are unvetted refugees. The governor was trying to protect the people of Georgia, and Olin's undercut him.
Well, I think he was just interpreting the law as it is, and it's a federal law, and the states are obliged to obey it.
The states administer, to Dick's point, the food stamp programs. You can't stop
federal
refugees from
funds,
moving
though.
in from South Carolina or whatever, but you can stop them from getting the benefits.
Well,
that's arguable, though. I think that's the point.
Well,
that's
and my point is
another-
go to court and argue it out. That's my point.
Well, that's what, that's what
I think that the
governor should do then.
and the Attorney General
He
has
wants to
told him
do
that
it.
you can do that and he'll lose. I think
Now,
that's what the opinion was all about.
Right.
One of the things that was clear about this was a show of independence from the Attorney General, and I like to see that. I think that we need a strong, independent Attorney General who is not beholden to party politics.
Well, and then right after that, again, the Attorney General in the news, and Phil, I think, had the first word on this, that the governor has asked the Attorney General to look into fantasy sports betting.
Yeah,
To
That's
see if
right.
it complies with our laws.
that's right.
Those commercials have dried up, by the way. Have you noticed?
Well,
You're not seeing them because the
You're right.
status of those two big companies is very much in doubt.
Well,
You're
it's
right.
also timing, too. Football season is about wrapping up.
Well, I believe the playoffs are this weekend.
but they
Yeah.
want to do advertising year-round because it's a huge billion-dollar-plus industry. I'm glad finally there's some movement. You know, I've been on this
You have.
crusade, and I'll be interested to hear again what your independent Attorney General has to say. And I'm not opposed to an independent Attorney General, but I want an aggressive Attorney General.
Well, so do I, and I think that he's showing some aggression by standing up to the governor and others who want to try to
Well, let's hope.
skirt around federal law.
Let's hope he will give an opinion to say, is this legal? By what legality are they operating in the state of Georgia? Because as we know, it's supposed to be the only gambling and gaming is supposed to be tied to the lottery
That's right.
and those games.
Yeah,
Right.
it'll be an interesting
Yeah, see how they-
exercise.
See what they do.
Okay, I want to get out a little bit early on this segment because I want to come back and talk about the specter of Big Brother. But this time the Big Brother is corporate interests, fat cats in Georgia, and they're meddling in the Religious Freedom Act. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And be sure to visit us on Facebook as well. I'm running out of personal options. I generally fly Delta. I generally drink Coke Zero. I read the Monopoly daily paper. And yet they're trying to meddle in my political views, in my political arena, with Delta, Coke, and others forming something called Georgia Prospers. And they're going to attempt to stop the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and they're quite vocal about it. They have a website. They have an executive director, our old friend Ronnie Chance. And I don't think it's these companies' business to meddle in that. I think that's up to the General Assembly and the people of Georgia.
Oh, my.
You know,
What happened
companies
to
do have to
Citizens
be
United?
careful. Companies have to be. You're a PR guy, and I advise on PR, and it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you're going to bring in some customers who love it, and on the other hand, you're going to turn off people and maybe trigger boycotts. That is probably going to be one of the big issues
Oh, no question.
in the legislature.
And wasn't the Supreme Court decision said that corporations are people, too?
Yeah.
And Citizens
In
United?
the
So
hobby,
why
yeah.
can't they participate?
With the mood of the public being what it
Can't have
is
it
right
both
now,
ways, yeah.
I think that you'd have so many more conservatives and Republicans if they just hewed to economic issues. If they stuck on economic issues, but instead they get into these religious freedom fights and abortion and all of these social issues that they're not going to win on and end up actually fighting with their friends.
I'm going to say
and their
this.
friends are those who are out there creating wealth, creating jobs, and that's exactly the
But
situation
I'm
we've
going to
got
say
right
this
here.
every broadcast until this issue is resolved. This act, sponsored by Josh McCoon, mirrors federal legislation passed in 1993, signed by a Democrat President, Bill Clinton, and passed subsequently in 20 other states. What's wrong with that?
20
there
years.
will be the potential to interpret it in completely different ways. And I think that's what these corporate interests are rightly concerned about. I'm glad that they're out there doing this. But we really do have to look at, and I think that the party, especially after it loses this next presidential election, needs to look at how they're going to handle these social issues going forward. You got people who really are concerned about debt and taxes and things like that. But when you start hanging around their necks things like abortion and religious freedom and gay rights and all of these other things that Republicans habitually oppose.
Jeff, here's the deal.
You're not going to get those voters.
You know, here's the deal, and you know this: the Republican Party is a center-right party. It's a coalition, just like the Democratic Party is a coalition. You can do both, I would maintain, but it's got to be done smartly and cleverly, and that's why I like Speaker Ralston, Dick. You've heard me talk about his Pastor Protection Act, because a lot of people, and not just Republicans, but independents and Democrats, are upset about the hard left trying to hassle traditional Christian ministers, mainly, who are talking about traditional marriage. And so the Republican Party is responding to that. Now, you're right, it's how they respond, but you can do both. You can have economic growth and smart growth and free enterprise.
Well, let me change the subject, because this issue isn't going away. When the General Assembly comes back tomorrow, it'll be top of mind. But let's swing to Atlanta, where we've talked in the past about the Beltline, which, by the way, was supposed to be a transportation system, and it's a walking path, just for the record. But anyway, that's a tax allocation district. That's a tax allocation district, and the city was supposed to be making regular payments, sizable payments, to the school system. The city quit during the Great Recession. When Obama became elected, they quit paying, because everything's free at that point. But now Kasim Reed has made it. Kasim Reed has cut a check to the Atlanta School Board for more than $9 million, so that he doesn't go into default on the tax deal.
Right.
But the council says, wait a minute, we have to approve that. That seems fair to me.
Yeah, you know, if we can go back a little bit, you know, there are these things called pilots. I think they're payments in lieu of taxes. And those were supposed to go to the Atlanta School District under the Beltline TAD. By the way, you say that it's just a walking path. It is the #1 economic development engine in the city of Atlanta right now. I don't know if you've been to Pond City Market.
No, I'm not.
It's on the Beltline.
I don't disagree
And the
with you.
reason that it's so successful is because it's on the Beltline.
I don't disagree with
It's just
you. I'm just waiting for that light rail.
And the millions upon billions of dollars that it has already generated are going to be huge for the city, for the school district, and for taxpayers in general.
Submit to you.
And that's the part that the school district needs to realize. When you put in hard payments based on 2009 real estate estimates, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, instead of a percentage of what the tax proceeds were going to be. So the deal was not, I don't think, drafted properly, and it needed some cooperation, some collaboration in this intergovernmental agreement between those parties.
Well,
And
they're negotiating.
They are working it out, and I think, to Jeff's point, the deal wasn't struck properly in the first place.
We all agree on that.
They promised
Right.
X number of dollars.
Well,
as
it's
opposed
also
to,
hurting right now. It's hurting any chance of a tax allocation district for Doraville and the GM plant in DeKalb County, because the DeKalb School Board has seen what happened to the Atlanta School Board.
But
in
I
this
think
deal.
what
And
they'll
the
do
school
is they will
system needs
benefit
that money,
from.
and they can't plan.
Well, they'll benefit from that experience, and they'll structure the deal as a way of percentage rather than actual
All
dollar
you have to do
amount.
is just structure the deal in the right way. You can get the pilots, and I think that the school district could do the same thing. It's not a bar to doing it.
Also, just a quick
Do
note,
it
the
right
Atlanta
way.
Public Schools announced this week that they would go toward the direction of charters and for-profit operators for the schools that are not performing well. I guess to avoid the state takeover, if voters approve that in November. Cumberland CID, that's a community improvement district, came up with $5 million for that bridge across I-285 to the new SunTrust Braves Stadium. We still don't have a total amount on that bridge, do we?
Well, we're talking $5 million from what we're reading this week. I tell you what, I think the CID has come through and saved Cobb Commission Chairman Tim Lee's bacon. This is a good plan. We don't know all of the details, but this is what we've been looking for. I don't know if the bridge will be ready. It probably won't be for when the Braves, have their first game. But at least this looks like a good deal. I think some wise heads got together in Cobb County, and I've always liked these CIDs. And it's also to develop that whole Cumberland area. It's not just
and economic development there is huge. Now, let's just turn to Gwinnett very quickly because we're out of time in this segment. I was impressed by the fact that the loosening of the budgets, because the recession appears to be easing. It's not over yet. Gwinnett County
According to what?
Gwinnett County, me.
Okay, good. I just want to know the source.
Me. I'm in a recession.
All right.
Gwinnett County is going to add 55 new police and sheriff's people. That's a lot. They're going to open a new police precinct in Grayson, in that high growth area there in North Gwinnett County. Fascinating what good budgets can do. And then finally, the Board of Regents voted to approve the merger of Georgia State University and Georgia Perimeter College, making a school of 53,000 students.
It'll be the biggest in the state.
And one of the largest in the nation.
How about that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's all going to work, though. Being familiar with GPC and DeKalb County mostly, not all, but I don't know how that's going to work.
The campuses are going to be so spread out that it will be interesting to see how it all coordinates.
But you'll still be saving money in the end.
Yes, you will, at least in administrative costs. All right, when we come back, pure power politics. Lynn Westmoreland has figures in that, and so does Michael Thurman. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
In what I consider an unconventional move, Congressman Lynn Westmoreland of the South Metro area announced that he's retiring from Congress after 6 terms and will contemplate, I guess, a run for governor on the Republican side in 2018, right? I think you keep your seat, you hold on to your power base while you consider whether you're going to run for governor.
Yeah, but
it seems to me
I
taking
think
2 years
he got mad
off,
and took his marbles to go home because he didn't get a chance to get in line to be Speaker of the House.
Well, I don't think that's it.
But I think he's just gotten upset with a lot of the gridlock and the shenanigans on Capitol Hill. There's something to that. But, that's going to create politically a huge scramble. That's a Republican district.
Sure.
I think Mitt Romney got 66% of the vote there when he ran. So we could throw out some names. Who knows? Maybe Matt Ramsey, the state representative, could get in there. Josh McCoon, who you talked about, there's a section of Columbus that's in that district. I think there'll be 4 or 5. But, we have to salute Lynn Westmoreland.
Absolutely. I think he's been a terrific congressman.
And wasn't he someone's chief of staff before he ran?
He was in the legislature.
He was in the legislature. Yeah,
He was a home
long
builder.
time.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
And he's a good guy.
That's right.
And he's done a good job.
Right.
Now, in DeKalb County,
Except
we don't know what's going to happen, but there is going to be a race for CEO. Now, the question becomes, does Burl Ellis, for example, get out of prison, perhaps get his case overturned and run again? Does Lee May, the interim CEO, does he run? And there's a lot of talk about Michael Thurman, Jeff, who was the school superintendent.
Yeah, and there's a new poll out by Fred Hicks and Mike Hassinger that shows that Mike Thurman has more support than Lee May and former Sheriff Thomas Brown combined.
Really? Combined?
Combined. It also shows Solicitor Sherry Boston and the District Attorney in a dead heat. And this is before she really gets her campaign going, and but the numbers on Mike Thurman I think are amazing and show that not only that these are just Democrats who were polled.
Oh, okay.
And so and Democrats who despite many of the misgivings about the Bowers-Hyde report, believe that there is a pattern of corruption in DeKalb County and want to see it change, want to do something about it. And they see Michael Thurman as the person who can come in there and bring that kind of stability. And of course, he did exactly that with the school district.
And I would agree with that. And it's interesting that, if you polled independents and Republicans, I think you'd see a lot of support for Michael, too.
I think Michael Thurman would run #1 among Republicans.
Right.
Right, and he also has a sterling reputation that he brought from running the state labor department as well.
That's correct. And he's one of the few and I do think there's a pattern of corruption, and we've seen it, but I think...
No, really?
I think that was for Jeff's benefit. But I do agree with you. I think that this is a sterling example of someone who is an honest public servant
Yeah,
and
you really
who
need
could help
somebody
turn
who has
things
got
around.
who has a credibility, the confidence of the electorate to move in there and bring some stability to county government.
Right.
This week in national politics was dominated by President Obama weeping for the victims of gun violence.
Now, don't we all weep for them?
Sure, of course.
We should.
Especially
Of course,
when they're
we should
children.
do. But he literally wept.
Yes, and we should all.
And I wonder.
Except instead of becoming inured to it, and
then he proposed nothing.
Well, why doesn't he
Well, he
weep? Why doesn't he
proposed
weep
quite a lot.
over? There's a lot of beheadings of Christians going on in the world. There's a lot of shootings here in this country. Where's the weeping there? It's pretty selective weeping.
We believe is the most sophisticated and advanced civilization in the world. And it is also the most violent.
But he proposed
and we have a
nothing.
problem with that. And we should be concerned about it.
It is not
Instead
the
of
most
making fun of
violent.
the president for trying to do something about it.
If he
and
wanted
for
to do
actually
something,
showing some
if he
emotion.
wanted to do something, he'd do it in Chicago, the most bloodthirsty city in America.
He's trying to do it
in
not
his
just in
neighborhood.
Chicago,
He's trying
but
to do it all
across
over.
this country, because we have got an epidemic
But he proposed
of
nothing.
crime and gun violence. How are you going to propose something when you got the NRA out there stronger than the Congress, right? Talking about a Second Amendment and the militia. Look, guys, we have intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Look,
we don't need
you're a gun
militia.
owner. You're a gun
I
owner, right?
am an enthusiastic gun
Shouldn't you
owner.
be able to just sell a gun to
But let me
me
tell
or
you
anybody?
what.
But
No,
you
answer
should-
the
if you
question.
poll-
He's trying to stop that.
If
No,
you
he's trying to
poll-
prevent people
And
from
it ought to be
getting
Congress
buying
and not a
guns
president. I don't
without
care if
having
it's a
background
Republican or a
check.
Democrat president.
None of the recent
It ought to
mass
be
shootings.
Congress
And where
doing
is
this,
the-
Jeff.
And why isn't Congress doing its job?
Because they have a right not to do some of this crazy gun
Because they're
control
scared of the
stuff.
NRA.
We don't want gun control.
Well, I'll tell you, there's an atmosphere in the country that Donald Trump is feeding off of. And remember, we got our primary coming up in March here. There's a feeling of anger. Look, I just said the word gun, and everybody's all upset.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's the anger that is fueling, I think, Donald Trump's successes. I
Well,
think there's so
it's
many
anger
issues like
People
this.
are worried about security, and
Right.
rightly so. And let me
Right.
tell you, a friend of mine was on Roswell Road in Atlanta at a gun shop in the middle of the day. Who was there? Women of all ages. There was hardly a male there. They are buying handguns. They are
Because-
concerned, to your point.
Because Donald Trump has been stirring up fear
No, it's
among
because
the
Barack
electorate.
Obama is not protecting
We have
us.
to get out.
Oh,
we have to get out.
please.
But I would take the president much more seriously if he would join Rahm Emanuel in addressing the problems of 30 shootings each weekend in Chicago. It's outrageous. And those are children, too, in a lot of cases. And he can weep over that. All right, when we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
We've discovered we have a consensus loser, Chick-fil-A, because they dropped coleslaw. Oh, my goodness, all of us agree on that
Yeah.
one thing.
Right.
All right,
I think that you should just go over to Zaxby's. You can get it there.
okay,
But
go ahead,
it's
Jeff.
not bad.
Give me some winners and losers.
It's not, I think because of this poll, I think that Michael Thurman is a winner, and it shows that there is some momentum behind that race there. And I don't have a loser this week. It's a new year, and we hope that everybody's going to be a winner, especially Ronnie Chance and that organization that he's put together. He's
Georgia
another winner.
Prospers?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a good one. We want Georgia to prosper.
Absolutely.
I want the
Yeah.
recession to end, too. Go ahead, Alexis.
All right, I'm going to salute John Lewis. The USS John Lewis was launched this week by the Department of the Navy, and they're going to name a series of new ships after civil rights leaders in America. And in the spirit of John Lewis, it is a support tanker or something.
It's an oiler.
Yeah, that won't be a gunboat, actually. So that's a very nice tribute to John Lewis. And then also the Drexel High School class of 1965 had their 50th reunion, and it was the only black high school for black Catholic high school for 6 years back in the 60s.
I bet it was named after St. Catherine Drexel, now that you mention that.
There
I
you
didn't
go.
know that.
And then finally, Chick-fil-A is a winner because they're back open in New York. They were closed for a week.
Yeah, well, that was a bad black mark.
Yeah.
Phil, what you got?
Well, I'll echo Michael Thurmond as a winner, and I'm glad to hear that poll, Jeff. And also, we talked about Congressman Lynn Westmoreland, just a good statesman. You know, the winner are the Falcons fans who don't have to endure any more of these games. So,
Ouch.
that's a good
Very
one.
definition of mediocrity, 8-8.
That's exactly right.
Very
And you know,
definition.
I know you want to talk about this, but we want to salute one of the forerunners here in the Republican Party, a great state legislator. He worked across party lines, and that was Mike Egan, who
That's
passed
right.
away.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Right.
When I came to Georgia, Mike Egan was serving the Carter administration as Deputy Attorney General. And I remember how surprised I was that there were only about 4 Republicans in the whole General Assembly. There was Mike Egan, there was Kill Townsend, there was John Linder,
And Johnny Isaacson.
and Isaacson, I think, came along
later.
about that time.
Came along a little later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Mike Egan
Yeah.
was a true Southern gentleman, Princeton graduate, and just an honorable guy in every way. And he died this week, and he was in his 80s. Falcons, what can you say? 8-8. Hey,
They're
we're
still getting a
mediocre.
new stadium.
We'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang. Yeah, good luck selling those tickets.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.